gotten this far, we have the perfectly baked cake. It's unmolded beautifully, no crumbs. We have a fabulous ganache frosting that's just at the point of being the perfect consistency to spread. And now comes the real fun part, putting the two together. And I'd like to share with you some really neat tips that will make this experience even more fun. The first step is to trim any kind of little border that's sticking up. Just trim it right off. Remember, crumbs are your enemy because they'll end up in the frosting, and here you have this velvety frosting that's going to end up looking crummy because there are little crumbs in it. So here's how to prevent it. We brush off any crumbs or hard parts that form on the very outside of the cake. And you can use a little brush if you need to, but you see that the side of the cake is beautifully sealed in, so is the top crust. That's why I like to start by frosting the top and not the bottom. I have a cardboard round that's covered with foil, decorative foil, but I could use just a plain cardboard because it's not going to show. But I don't want to cut my own because the sides would never be smooth. You have to buy one from a cake decorating supply place to make your life really easy. And then just slide it under. In fact, what I also like to do to keep it from shifting is I take a little bit of whatever frosting I'm using and spread it on the center. And then when I slide it under, it will spread around, and it acts as if it were glue to keep the cake from moving, especially when we're cutting it to serve. And now I'll center the cake right on it. Now, this is a 9-inch cake round. This was a 9-inch cake. It was baked in a 9-inch pan. But you see that it shrank from the sides of the pan by about 1/4 of an inch. Perfect, because that's going to be the exact amount of frosting that we're going to be putting on the sides. Now, some people don't like holding a cake in their hand when they frost it. You get used to it and you have a lot more control, but you could set it down on a turntable or on the counter if you insist. But I'll show you why it's so much easier to hold it in your hands. I start off by heaping always a lot more than I want, because if I were to dab on a little, every time I'd lift it off, so would the crust come off with it. Better to pile on a lot of frosting and then remove the excess after you've sealed in the crust. And I'm doing it by going back and forth, spreading it, but never touching the crust. Another big dab. Now at this point, I can actually do it on the turntable. It's the sides that I want to have in the cake in my hands when I'm applying the buttercream or the ganache to the sides of the cake. So I start covering the entire center. This is why I like a turntable, because it helps to make it even. If you do a lot of cakes, you're going to end up wanting to get a turntable. There, now the top is temporarily done, and now I'm going to do the sides. Same principle applies here. I'm putting more than I want because I can remove the excess. And I'm putting it on the side, and you can see that the amount between the side of the cake round and the side of the cake determines how much frosting is there. So if you had a 1/2 inch, that would be a lot too much frosting. Although it's hard to say there'd be too much of this frosting because ganache, it's really what a truffle is made of. Chocolate and heavy cream. It is so delicious. But any other buttercream, I would want even a thinner layer, to tell you the truth. So we're going to go around the entire cake, putting, as I said, more than I'd want initially, until the whole thing is iced. And to finish it off, we can do swirls, or we can keep it totally clean and smooth. And I know it looks easy, and you're probably thinking it's because I'm doing it. It's easy because you've made a frosting that's easy to work with, and you're using this cardboard round. It'll be just as easy for you as it is for me, and pretty quick. And you don't want to have it totally smooth because that's plastic. You want it to look a little homey, a little rough. So now I'll set it down on the turntable. And you know, actually, it isn't bad just the way it is now. But if I want to do something a little bit more inspired, I'll use some of my extra frosting and start making those opulent swirls. There's something about big swirls that make it more inviting, that make people want to just bite right into it. Whereas when you leave it smooth and perfect, nobody wants to be the first to cut it. Isn't that gorgeous? And then you can dust a little cocoa. Cocoa powder is darker and it's not sweetened, so that You're not adding more sugar. Or if you like a little extra sugar, use powdered sugar in a sieve. And just gently knock the side of this fine strainer. And that kind of brings it to life, so it isn't all just one tone of brown. And then you can put it on a decorative plate and have a stunning cake. So you see how easy it is with these few secrets. Cardboard cake round, even cake layer, putting more frosting than you thought you needed and removing excess. And you have a really elegant looking, professional looking cake.